something that doesn't need to happen. You know, like I say, this sort of thing could easily be taken to the landfill or disposed of properly. This site actually looks like it's been cleaned up a little bit from what it is sometimes. So, you know, trouble is somebody has to go out of their way and take their time to clean up these messes, and you know, like I say, it just doesn't reflect well on anyone when people leave this sort of stuff laying around.
Even more important in some of these backcountry lands is the effect of off-road vehicles, where they go, by definition, off-road, and way too often ignore any sort of regulation or even good sense in what they do. They break down sagebrush, they create avenues where the next rain will erode badly, and again they have a tremendous impact on the native wildlife that's trying to breed, calve, drop their young, lay eggs, and to my way of thinking, in the last 30 years that I've been here, if I were going to assign a reason for the decline in all sorts of wildlife, it would come down to roading and increased off-road vehicular traffic.
I really think that more intrusion by people just means less wildlife. Much more wildlife, much more habitat remains in place in places where we don't have roads.
Well, I've hunted Oregon all my life. I've been a resident of Oregon all my life. As I hunt more and more, and there's more multiple use of the country, which is what I'm for. But as we hunt this areas, we see more new trails and new roads that have been put there that have never been there before. And there's new access to areas that's never been there before. And I don't think if we don't be good stewards of the land and control our multiple use to this country, none of us will have any use later on.
If you fly over the Oahes Mountains in south of us here, you'll see ATV trails going up every little ridge there is. So I think overall sometimes hunters have shot themselves in the foot, and we're probably our worst enemies, and we got to be better stewards of that, and we need to set better examples, because if we don't change our ways and unify as hunters, like Pheasants Forever, we've got this property here. We've basically been doing it all by ourselves, but we've been asking a lot of the other groups and outdoor groups to help us out, because it's a big task to take on, but small groups can do big things, so I hope your group can do big things too.
There's lots of vehicles sold every year for off-road use, and like I say again, if we don't be good stewards of the land and stay on the designated trails and roads, we'll lose all access to that land.
let's not be our own worst enemies. You know, let's set an example. We're asking landowners to do things differently. We're asking ATV riders to do things differently. We're asking a bunch of people to change the way they do business, including government agencies. We only have the credibility that we maintain by our own good actions and our own dependability. And when we cut fences, when we ignore no trespassing signs, when we leave trash or disobey game laws, then our credibility goes to zero. And then we lose the opportunity and the leverage that we might have otherwise to make good things happen.
Well, first of all, we need to clean up our act with ethics. I think, sadly enough, as hunters, we have a certain percentage of them that aren't ethical, and because of that, we trash people's property, we leave gates open, don't have good relationship with private landowners, and then when we are on public land, a lot of ATV misuse.
Because there aren't a lot of roads, it's easy for us to be lazy and fire up the four-wheeler or the whatever the new side-by-side things, UTVs they call them, and drive out across that stuff because we're too lazy to pick up an antelope and you know, carry it back or put it in our cart and roll it back. And I'll be the first to admit I've been guilty of that, okay? But the consequences of that are increased erosion, increased weed dispersal, compromised sagebrush habitats, and now we're faced with things like a potential listing for sage grouse. We got to clean it up.
Public encroachment, which in some areas, not necessarily where I am, but some of the areas that I deal with as chairman of the Oregon Public Lands Committee, is that some of these areas are the encroachment by the public has really been an issue that is really hurting some of the permittees right now. We see a lot of ATV use during, say, hunting season. We don't see the recreational riders right where we are here, but boy, not far from here, it's a big, big deal. They're really coming in out of the Boise Valley into this area and into the mountains above us here, just unbelievable. If they limit some of the, say, ATV use or road use in these core areas, probably we're going to have to do some of that anyway. I think they're going to have to work with the local people. I think there is, as I said, there is some issues with public pressure. And if we've got areas with public pressure right now that are threatening these birds, well, the birds, if the birds are listed, that's going to definitely affect us too. And everybody in this business knows that. And so we're going to have to give a little and take a little, I think. And if it takes closing some of these roads for the birds' sake due to public pressure, well, I think that's probably the thing that's going to have to happen anyway.
I think the era of going cross-country anywhere one wants to is diminishing. The sage-grouse planting effort will look at certain kinds of closures. Seasonal closures near flecks or strutting grounds, mating grounds for the bird. But it's got to be bigger than that. We've got to be looking at all species in a planting area and make the best decision on managing the environment with the full recognition of the significant impact on local economies, on hunting, fishing, cross-country travel, backcountry travel.
I've hunted in other states that have limited access, and that's controlled by closing certain roads during hunting season or maybe elk calving season, that sort of thing. And I'm all for closing that access down, giving the game the time to recuperate.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we reduce the road densities to a level that are as compatible with the needs of the wildlife. It's that simple.
Yeah, I used to race desert motorcycles. I used to ride all over the desert and never think twice about the impacts. For myself, I just don't do anything but standard road driving and then park and go into areas without roads. I find that wildlife is plentiful, more so than any place that are in the road area.
Tread lightly, be responsible, think about the consequences of your actions. And we learned this in kindergarten, by the way. Okay, we did, And so on a landscape scale, if you drive through a Medusa Head patch in Harney County or in the north end of Lake County and then come out here to Drake's Flat, where we have, as best as we can tell on Drake's Flat right now, we've done the surveys, we've got about 20 acres of Medusa Head, and we are fighting it hard because we don't want it to spread. Okay, you drive through that Medusa Head flat, the seeds hang up in your four-wheeler or your pickup truck or whatever, and then you drive out across country, and those seeds fall out, then they establish, then you're annual invasive. So the message for everybody is, you learned it in kindergarten. Be responsible. Think about your actions. If you are not physically capable of packing out an antelope in the desert or packing out a mule deer or an elk, take a kid hunting with you. Find somebody that's 19 years old and mentor them into the hunting community and have them put elk quarters on their back. They'll love it.
I think the biggest challenge above all is keeping people involved. We have so many planning efforts going on right now, mostly as a response to a changing environment. The fires last year, the significant increase in invasive species, identification of some species and their critical habitat. It's driving our planning right now, and we've got to get ahead of this. And I think the only way to do that is to come out with a good product. And I think it's crucial that we have a broad range of people who are involved, again, for the long haul. The NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, requires us to do as much as we can to involve as broad a range of the public as possible. Significant decisions will be made over the next 2 or 3 years in the West and certainly in Eastern Oregon.
We are not an anti-ATV organization by any means. Many of our members use off-road vehicles to access their hunting areas. I myself have used off-road vehicles on a number of occasions, but most of our members realize that once you get to your destination, you need to get off the motorized vehicle and you need to use your boots to access the areas that you want to hunt.
Know what the threats are. We've got to start managing them, okay, or we're going to lose it. And we've got hundreds of thousands of acres in Oregon where we've lost it, and it's going to cost millions of dollars to recover it. if we can. If we can.